We want to go to the Vaqueros Cafe and Cantina hotline. I know feel like I'm the throwback thing, but we are talking about a man here who established some unbelievable highs as the head football coach at the University of Texas. If you think about all the consecutive 10-win seasons, and of course the capper being the 2005 national championship season, but he is a college football Hall of Famer. He not once but twice has turned around, and as a native of the state of North Carolina, I know how incredibly difficult this job it would be in both occasions, turning around the North Carolina football program 2 times now. And he joins us right now. Mack Brown joins us on the Vaqueros Cafe and Cantina hotline. I really appreciate the time, Mack. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great, Craig. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. I was thinking about something this morning, and I guess we should let folks know a little bit about it. I talked about it just a little bit, but I know you've always been very, very close to the Texas High School Coaches Association, going all the way back when your good friend Eddie Joseph was the executive director, and the late Eddie Walsky and the late Eddie Joseph were big parts of that. And then going on to D.W. Rutledge with Joe Martin, his assistant. Now it's Joe and Glenn West, and you've known these guys. I mean, you recruited some of Glenn West's best players when he was at Brenham. So you've had these relationships a long time with them, and I know I'd heard they went calling for you. They wanted to have you visit with them, and I wanted to give you a little bit of an opportunity, first of all, just to talk about this Sunday and the panel, the Q&A that we're going to do, and the things about that really relate to what you love and seem to love most, and that's coaching and coaches and working around coaches. And I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about that before we hit a couple other topics.
Yeah, well, Craig, I grew up in a high school coaches family. My granddad and my dad were high school coaches, and then principals, and then superintendents, and so my life was with high school football, and it's absolutely a farm program. We wouldn't have college football if it wasn't for the great high school coaches that send us guys. And the high school coaches in the state of Texas treated me so well. The guys that you just mentioned, some we've lost and missed so much, but others are dear friends to this day. Glenn West actually came to a game this year, and came, I think it was a Notre Dame game, and asked me to speak to the coaches. And gosh, those coaches have been great to me for the 21 years I was at Texas, 16 coaching, and then since we've been here, they've come to visit, and they constantly call us about recruits, and but they were one of the main reasons we won the national championship. We were about 99% high school football players from the state of Texas, and the ones that we didn't have from Texas were legacies. So after the game, I readily said that we are here because of the high school coaches in the state of Texas, and absolutely meant it. And they've asked me to fly down on Sunday to Houston, and you and I do a question and answer, and then do a little bit of panel. And I absolutely cannot tell this group of people no. And I'm excited about seeing a lot of friends on Sunday, including you, so we can catch up.
Yeah, it'll be an awful lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to what are the types of you have visited with coaches many times over the years, high school coaches, college coaches, clinics, things like that. You've always been a real big football junkie about just immersing yourself in those kinds of things. What do you enjoy the most about the coaching family and the extended family of coaching tree and all of that sort of stuff? What do you enjoy the most about that part of the game?
Craig, most people, that if you haven't coached, it's like if I haven't been in the business of the people that are our boosters, I don't know what they do. I think I do, and I have opinions, but coaches are a rare breed, and coaches influence young people's lives. And the older I get, I have to realize I have to be really careful what I say to a young guy, because he's going to listen and he's going to remember it. And guys come back that played for me 30 years ago and say, remember when you said this? And I might not even remember it, but he did. Or remember when you went to my dad's funeral, and I'll remember when Coach Royal was struggling with dementia. I went to see him, and he knew who I was. And he had forgotten a lot of people, and it really bothered me. But one thing he never forgot is the name of a player that walked in to see him. And that really told me something about the influence that you have on the players, but also the influence the players have on you and for the rest of your life. And Sally and I have a family of players for over 35 years as a head coach, and now they're grown up, and now we're coaching some of their sons. And some of the Texas players brought their kids to camp this year, that some of our ex-players. So I think, Craig, just the fact that we all appreciate and respect each other and what we do. When I was doing TV, a lot of the media would ask me, why do you take up for coaches so much? And I said, I know how hard they work. I know that they're trying to get things done. Doesn't mean they're going to do it right. All of us mess stuff up. We just do it in public. And I think that's the respect and appreciation and love that I have for coaches, because the high school coaches don't even make that much money in a lot of cases, and they work so hard, and their benefits are winning and championships and all those things. But the real benefit is the influence that you can have on somebody's life, and that's a real gift.
There's always an image that is burned into my mind. Several, obviously, of our time together and when you were the coach at Texas, but there's one that always remains really indelibly etched in my mind, and it has to do with coaching school and that sort of thing. And one year, ironically, where we'll be on Sunday in Houston. Coaching school was in Houston, and this was probably around 2004 or something like that. And we'd had the panel discussion, the Division I coaches panel discussion, which I'll do again on Sunday evening or something. And then I went to dinner with some other media members, and then afterwards I had some work to do, some reports for the radio station, was doing all that kind of stuff, and I finally get done with that, and it's 1:30 in the morning, and I thought, I'm thirsty. I need a bottle of water before I go to bed. So I go down to the lobby, and it's that old Astrodome Sheridan that we were all headquartered at back in the day. And I go down, and I go in the little store to get a bottle of water, and I start to go back up to an escalator or elevator, and I see you standing in the lobby at 1:40 in the morning visiting with a coach. Now, the typical response might be fans would say, well, yeah, he's recruiting, he's working it. This was a coach, and I knew who he was. He was a coach of a very small classification, like a 2A school, deep in the Rio Grande Valley. He was never going to have a player that you were going to recruit. It was never about anything, but there you were listening to what he said, and it's 1:40 in the morning. And I thought, well, that's Mack in a nutshell. But, I mean, those types of moments, I know that just getting an opportunity to visit, as you just said, with a young coach, I mean, those things still resonate with you, don't they?
Well, they do, Craig. And we as college coaches ask the high school coaches to give us so much. Get the kid to come to visit. Try to talk to the kid about coming to your school. What time are you practicing? We're going to see your practice. And I've always told our coaches, when we go to a coach's clinic, we go to a coach's convention, like coach's school is what we called it in Texas. They're going to have 12,000 plus coaches there this weekend. You need to win the clinic. You be the first one there to help these coaches and give back to them, and you be the last one to leave, because that's your payback. And we've always told them, anything the NCAA will let us do for you as high school coaches, especially in our state, then we're going to do it. And we're going to do it better than anybody else. So I said, you better be there first, and you better be there last. So if A&M was sitting in the lobby, we were going to make sure that we stayed longer than A&M. So that was part of the competition at coaches school.
Well, I also remember, too, when in doing the panel discussion, you were a participant, just like all the other Division I FBS coaches in the state of Texas. But you had every one of your staff members, your full-time coaches, your GAs, they were all there, and that was the first time I'd seen any other coach do that. Now, I think just about all of them do it now, but they were all there, and they were all in burnt orange coaching polos, and they were all front and center and taking notes and playing and all that. So clearly you wanted them visible and present for the other high school coaches, as well as just listening to what was going on in the panel.
Yes, Craig. I wanted our coaching staff to show the respect to the high school coaches in the state of Texas that we had, and I wanted them available. And if a question came up to the panel and it was an interesting question and one of the coaches wanted to grab one of our assistants, if maybe I was busy, I wanted them all there. I wanted them visible, and I wanted them available to answer questions if we didn't have enough time, because you had to take a bunch of egos with all the head coaches sitting on a panel, and you had to make sure that you could get everybody a fair shake, and they all knew you were working at Texas. So that was a very difficult job that you managed very well.
well, I appreciate that. We had a good time. We're visiting with Mack Brown here. I want to get your thoughts on the art and the science and the myth, the mythology of recruiting itself. Has it changed a great deal from, say, even 11, 12 years ago, even 5 years ago when you got back into the game at Carolina? Has recruiting changed that much? A, because of the portal, and B, because of NIL and things of that nature. And how much has it changed for you?
Craig, it has changed. It started changing in the late 90s and early 2000s with social media. Because when you said something to a kid or sent a kid a note, it was on social media, so everybody knew it. Before that, you could have a private conversation with a player, a high school coach, or a family, and then third parties started getting involved. And then coaches could get to the players through social media without going through the head coach. And we have always respected the head coach and go through him, get he and the family involved. That's the only people we use, and that changed some. And then you've got 7-on-7s now across the country, and they have coaches. And they're gone most of the summer. They don't get to stay around their high school teams and coaches as much. And then when I came back 5 years ago, I thought the biggest difference was early signing date. And I was the president of the American Football Coaches Association when we presented early signing date. We wanted it only for legacy kids that wanted to go to your school and nowhere else, that wouldn't take any other visits, and we wanted it for early signees because they didn't have they didn't have a signing date. Well, the NCAA said that you can't just do it for a certain number. If you're going to do it for anybody, you got to do it for everybody. So they opened it up, and now we really just have one huge signing date in December, and the second one's just kind of a catch-up as we look at it. So that was different because you're now we've got 20-something commitments, and we'll probably be through by the end of July with our recruiting, where before you wouldn't even start till you'd have them come unofficially for a couple of games in the fall, and then you'd start having official visits in January. Now you're having all your official visits in March, April, and May, June. So it's just totally different. And then the addition of NIL and the addition of transfer portal has just made it really crazy. So you really have to decide who you are. Are you a school that's got a lot of money? Are you a school that's going to go by the rules? You can't offer kids money through NIL any different than you did before NIL, because if you offered a kid $200,000 to come to your school, that was an inducement. If you do that now, it's the same thing. What you can do is say that our running back, our top running back, is making $200,000, and if you play well enough, then that's a possibility for you. But you can't just offer money, and obviously cheaters cheat, and people that were cheating before with inducements are cheating now. So that hadn't changed. It's just what it is. So that makes it different because we have to look at the family, and if the family's going to take money illegally and we're not going to recruit them, not that much different than before, but we've got to be very selective in who we recruit. We've got to recruit somebody that wants to be at North Carolina academically. We've got to recruit somebody that's not just going to take money, because if they're going to take money coming in, and we lost 5 kids last year because of money, then, Craig, if they play great their freshman year, they're going to leave after that because somebody's going to offer them money, and that's where the transfer portal comes in. As far as the transfer portal itself, I haven't changed any. I've said it's a privilege to be at a University of Texas, or it's a privilege to be at a University of North Carolina, and you have earned the right to be here. That doesn't mean you get to do anything you want and stay. And if you want to leave, then leave. Go talk to your assistant coach. If you're not playing more, we're playing the guys that give us the best chance to win. If you don't like it and your parents don't like it, don't gripe. You can get in the portal in 5 minutes, and I'll help you go. So that part really hadn't changed that much. I think the biggest part that everybody's trying to figure out, NIL is a good thing. We're having young people learn how to handle their money, where they have more money than they've ever had. They're learning how to do charity work, but there's no guidelines. And we don't have amateurism anymore. We're more like the mini NFL, but we need guidelines. And we need it so there can be some fairness, because the schools with the most money are going to separate from everybody else, and it's kind of been that way anyway. And then we're just going to have a major league of 12 teams that are in the playoff, and everybody else is going to be playing at a different level, which I'm not sure is the model that is good for all of college football.
Mack Brown with us right now, and I'm just going to keep you another couple minutes. There's two questions that I've been wanting to ask you since since you were working television, one of them, and then the second one upon your return to Chapel Hill, and so here's a preview. I said to the listeners a preview of something I'll ask you on Sunday. One, the 5 years that you spent with ESPN, what struck you the most during that time about the game and coaches and the broadcast industry? That's the first question I have. And then the second one was, how different is the North Carolina position now than it was when you went in 1987 and you had the back-to-back 1-10s and all that kind of thing, and then flipped it all there before you came to Austin? But first, let me start with the ESPN thing and what that did for you and the perspective it gave you before you went back to coaching again.
Craig, it helped me so much. Number one, we were kind of worn out at the end at Texas, and it didn't end like we wanted it to, obviously. And 16 years is a long time. Sally always laughs and says that's 4 presidential terms. And we have so many friends in Texas, and we loved our time there, and wouldn't give it back for anything. And still love Austin. We've got a son, daughter-in-law, and 2 grandkids in Austin. Sally goes back probably once a month and gets to see them. I go back for our charity once a month. But we loved what we did. So when I got through, I'd been coaching my whole life, so I didn't have anything to do. And I was lucky. John Skipper called me and said, "We want you to work for ESPN." And it was funny. I went home and I said, Sally, John Skipper called and said he wanted to hire me at ESPN. She said, "What are you doing?" And she said, I said, "Well, I didn't ask him. I don't know for sure. He said it would be a prominent job." And she said, "Well, how much money are you making?" I said, "I don't know. I didn't ask him." And she said, "Well, how long's your contract?" And I said, I don't know, sweetie. He told me to call him back in June and we'd figure it out. So I trusted John, and then I had my 5 years with the media. And the thing I think that got me, Craig, is I didn't realize how hard your job is, and how hard the writers' jobs are, and how hard the TV jobs are. They're not after coaches. But you've got to have people read your stuff or watch your stuff or listen to your stuff. And you've got to have unique stuff, and you've got to bring energy. And sometimes people get mad at your perspective, but that's your job. It's an opinion job, and you're forming an opinion, and you're giving opinions. And that's okay. I have learned to agree to disagree. I may not agree with you, and you may not even be right in my mind, but if you think you're right, or in some cases they needed to do that for their job, then it was something that they had to do, because you constantly got people putting pressure on you to stir things up and get a very strong opinion, and it needs to be with sound bites. And so it's very difficult. The first TV job I had, they set me on there with John Saunders on ABC Countdown to Kickoff, and they didn't tell me anything. And they just said, "Answer John's questions." I said, "Well, which camera do I look at?" And they said, "Don't worry about it. Look at John." And I mean, I had absolutely no chance to sit and visit and ask about the show or questions. And then they'd be in my ear. And I'll never forget, Craig, one of them said something about make your answer shorter. And I said, "Got it." And they said, don't talk to me on TV. You're on TV instead of the earpiece. So it was a great time for me, and I loved ESPN and ABC, and I had a team, and I had people, and I got to visit with coaches, and I loved calling games because it it put me back in the position of the head coach, and I could give a perspective of what he was thinking, whether people liked it or not. And I got to sit and watch 24 games every Saturday and comment on those. I loved it. I thought it was an unbelievable experience for me, but one that really helped me when I got back in coaching. And then the difference in the North Carolina job now and before, there are a lot of differences. Number one, if I was 2-20, I'd have been fired this time because people are getting fired a lot faster. I think I'm making $5 million now. I was making $275,000 when I left here to go to Texas, and they paid me $750,000 at Texas with a 7-year contract. So all of those things have sure changed, but the North Carolina job is in a better position now than it was before because the ACC was not considered a prominent conference. Florida State was winning it all the time, and you had the BCS. So unless you could beat Florida State in our last year, we lost one game. We lost Florida State 20-3, and we were number 4 in the country, and they were 1 in the country, but we still couldn't get to a major bowl game, a BCS game. We went to the Gator Bowl. So now you have a chance by the structure of your league, if you win, because Clemson's been the dominant team in this league. Most years, Clemson's won this league, and they've been in the playoff. So that gives us a chance with more teams, more games, better teams. But there is a platform now for us to get in the playoff, and with a 12-team playoff, it gives you even a better platform to get in the playoff. You don't even have to win your league to get in and could still win a national championship. So I do feel like because of that, this job is better now than it was then.
The final thing here, I have so many images of the time when you were coaching and going out in the practice field and seeing you standing there out at midfield, and you'd have me come out there and visit with Coach Royal and Eddie Josen when you had him there, and it was always a lot of fun. And I think about that. And then I think about when we were doing your weekly radio show. At the time, we were doing it in your conference room, and I remember the year. I remember the time. You'll remember the year because you went through it when you had the double knee replacement, and you come in. And you'd come in off the practice field, I think, when we were doing the show on Wednesday nights, and we were doing the show live in those days, and you come in with these 2 giant ice bags, one on each knee, and you'd prop your legs up on the table and say, if you ever get knee replacement, never do them both at the same time. I remember you saying that, and I remember you putting on when we did a show on Halloween, and you put on like an alien mask, and it was an awful lot of fun. But probably some of the stuff I enjoyed the most about those is that quite often you would quote Coach Royal. Is there one quote from Coach Royal that stands out in your mind as much as anything else? Because I know how much you admired and respected him before the time you came to Texas, when you were here and were in his company when you were at Texas, and then of course we lost him while you were still at Texas. But is there's something that stands out from those times, the things that Coach Royal said that stands out as much as anything else?
Craig, there's so many things that stand out, and I find myself right now talking to our team or talking to our staff and saying, Coach Royal taught me this, Coach Royal taught me this, Coach Royal taught me this, because he took complicated things and made them simple. I think the one that probably stood out to me as much as any, he always said, I said, Coach, how am I going to explain this publicly? And he said, just say that you ain't going to believe this stuff, brother, without saying stuff. Because he was always saying, yeah, never seen that before, brother. But we lost to Oklahoma, and we played very poorly, and it was a bad game, a bad score. And after the game, I said our team quit. And I think it was the first time we'd lost to Oklahoma. And I was on my way home on the bus, and Coach Royal called me. He said, "You're not doing very good, are you?" And I said, "No, I'm not. I feel bad. We've let our fans down, let our team down. We played very poorly, and I've had it. We didn't play well at all." He said, "Well, a couple of things. When you're talking to the media after a loss, you need to say very little." He said, "The less you say, the less you got to take back." And he said, "You might as well blame yourself, because they're going to blame you anyway. And if you win, give credit to the players. and your assistant coaches. But if you lose, blame yourself. And he said, and you said something today that is really wrong. And I said, and he did say, he said, I got beat 77-13 or something once by Oklahoma in the 70s. So you're not the only one that's ever had your butt kicked by Oklahoma. So you don't need to start acting like it's only happened to you and feel sorry for yourself. I said, yes, sir. And then the last thing he said is, he said, you said your team quit. And that's wrong, Coach, because your team didn't quit. There's probably some players on your team that quit. But I can promise you, when you get home tonight and you watch that film, you're going to see a lot of guys that busted their tail and played great, and you need to apologize to them tomorrow. And he was so right. Teams don't quit. Players may quit. Teams don't play bad. Players may play bad. Certain players. But overall, you can't just take a group of players and say your team quit. And I will never, ever do that again. I remember Casey Hampton played one of the best games I've ever seen. And I apologized to the team the next morning, the guys that played well. I had them all stand up. And I said, I apologize to you because I mentioned you in the group. And there's a lot of guys in here that didn't play well. Some did quit. And we're going to address that. But the rest of you didn't. And I said, Casey Hampton, you keep standing, man, because you played the best game I've ever seen. So I am really sorry that I mentioned your name with some of these others. And we're going to get them straight, but you just keep doing what you're doing. And that's how wonderful Coach Royal was, and that's why he won 3 national championships and has a stadium named after him. I mean, that's what he was, and he helped me at Texas more than anybody. Coach Joseph was there every day. They were like family to me. And Coach Royal was like an older brother to me. And that's why I quote what he says all the time. Young high school coach came up to him and said, Coach, how do I become you? And Coach Royal says that we were at practice. Coach Royal says, you got to have it. And he said, you got to have it to make it. If you don't know what it is, you're not going to make it. And the young guy looked at me and I kind of said, I got you. I'm with you, bud. He turned around and walked off. Coach Royal said, hell, he ain't got it. So, I mean, that was just Coach Royal. He was going to be as honest and direct as he possibly could be. And that's why he was just so much fun.
I remembered that one. And then what if he'll bite as a pup, he'll bite as a grown dog, something like that.
He said, I said once, he said, how about your team, Coach? And I said, they're young. And he said, well, number one, if they'll bite as a pup, they'll bite as a dog. Or he said, if they won't bite as a pup, they won't bite as a dog, meaning the young ones better fight. The other thing he said, if you're young and good, that's a good thing. If you're young and bad, that ain't worth a damn. And yep. No, so he said, don't talk to me about how old they are. Talk to me about how good they are.
It's kind of like, and he was there obviously, and was the athletic director when the immortal Abe Lemons was the basketball coach, and Abe said something like, "The good news is we have almost our entire team back. The bad news is we have almost our entire team back." Coming off of that.
Coach Royal was telling me that Coach Lemons one time said, are you interested in the Lakers job? And he says, no, because of lack of interest. And he said, what do you mean? He said, they're not interested in me. So there's just the characters that you go through in coaching, and Coach Royal with me was just hilarious. I just absolutely loved him and loved being around him. And we lost him before we really lost him because his mind wasn't as good at the end. But I'm going to tell you, he has influenced more people in the state of Texas than probably anybody. And he has been the greatest influence other than my granddad on my life. And I just miss him so much. But he lives, his spirit lives with me every day. And that's so much fun.
Well, I appreciate you doing this. I know I kept you longer than I promised I would, and it was great to have just a little warm up chat with you. I'm looking forward to this thing on Sunday because like I've said, for people who listen and people have weighed in with all kinds of text and just all kinds of great comments for you and everything. But when I've seen you, sometimes when you're at your best is when you're with coaches, and I know that's the way you would prefer it, and it'll be a lot of fun to see you on Sunday and have you have those comments with the coaches. So I appreciate the time, Mac, and I hope you travel safe down to H-Town, and we look forward to seeing you on Sunday in Houston.
Well, thank you, Craig. We're actually going to land at 10:30. We're going to do our deal with you, get back on the plane at 2 because they got a lot of work to do here. We need to win more games, and we'll be back here by 5:45. So it's going to be a quick day on Sunday, but can't wait to see you and our many friends in the coaching world that you and I have, and can't wait to catch up. And thank you to all the Texas fans that treated us so well for so many years while we were there, packing the stadium every week and making it a wonderful place to play and a great experience. I asked Roy Williams one time, our great receiver, somebody asked me once, how do you handle a loss at home, Roy? I mean, what do you do? Do you go out or do you? And he said, "Oh, Coach, I never lost at home." So I thought, well, that's the best way to handle it. Don't lose at home, and then you don't have to worry about going out. You just do what you want. So, but we had a lot of wonderful years, and I've got so many friends in the state, and just love them and appreciate them. And my life's better because of the University of Texas and all the fans, but also all the high school coaches. So this will be a fun thing for me to do on Sunday. And when Glenn asked me, I was really excited to be able to go back and hug so many friends next on Sunday. So looking forward to it, and I'll see you there.
You bet. Thank you again, Mac. We'll see you Sunday.
Thanks, Craig.
All right. That's Mack Brown. And he's one of those people that you can add the words "the one and only" to because he's something else.